2倍速ってこんなもん？
この程度か。ここまでだ。
へえ、リポッポした。
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, a better Spiral Abyss? Is Forgotten Hall a better Spiral Abyss than Genshin Impact? Well, let's get straight to it. So, what is the Forgotten Hall first and foremost? Well, we'll hop in here and you'll see that the Forgotten Hall is very much like your Spiral Abyss in Genshin Impact, where you build a team and you essentially climb the ladder until you reach a certain point at the abyss, where you can then enter a more advanced stage where you're then challenged to greater enemies. And so, as you can see, based off of just the observation itself, there are 2 floors. Just like in Genshin Impact, 2 floors. The only difference is that in Genshin, you have 8 floors for your somewhat like floor 1 to floor 8. And then after floor 8, you go into floor 9 through 12. As you can see here in Forgotten Hall has floors 1 through 15. So that already is a huge, almost a double in the number of floors that you can actually challenge yourself with in the Forgotten Hall for Honkai Star Rail versus the 8 that you would receive in Genshin Impact. And furthermore, the second stage, which is Favor of Amber, the more advanced section of the Forgotten Hall, you can clearly see that you have 10 floors. So there's clearly a larger number when it comes to the amount of floors you have to go through. And some of you may be asking, well, that's a lot of floors, like that sounds like more of a grind. And sure, I can definitely understand that viewpoint. There definitely is a lot more floors to take part in and participate in. However, I feel like this is of great value because you are going to earn more rewards. And speaking of rewards, I'll show you them right now. So Genshin Impact gives you the reward of 100 per piece, like 100 per clear or per chamber, right? And the same thing is just like you would find here in the Forgotten Hall. So there's no difference here in terms of the rewards you get. You still get your 100 Stellar Jades, which is the equivalent of a Prima Gem. And then once you get to the higher level, the Memory of Abyss, or Memory of Chaos, sorry, you can then see that you get 50, 50, 50. And that, again, balances out with Genshin Impact. From floor 9 through 12, you also receive 50 per chamber. So this in itself is obviously a lot, but considering you're getting a few extra more floors, you're actually getting a lot more value and a lot more reward for your work that you put in. And one of the biggest differences, I think, between the Spiral Abyss and Genshin and Forgotten Hall here in Honkai Star Rail is that team building becomes more of a merit in this game compared to that of Genshin. And I'll explain. So most of the time in Genshin Impact, you'll often come across the quote-unquote meta teams that you would often take into the Abyss, and you can just clear the Abyss without really having to think too much. Granted, of course, you have your characters well built enough to do so, but in most cases, meta teams typically, you know, you have your Raiden National, for example, or your Taser Comp or Morgana. These teams you'll typically hear of in the Spiral Abyss community for Genshin, and those are teams that typically are very consistent because they do a lot of damage and they can clear the content relatively quickly. However, this isn't the case necessarily for Honkai Star Rail's Forgotten Hall, because if you can see here, there are elements. And sure, there are elements, of course, in Genshin, but they're almost tied to they're tied relatively to characters and then to certain enemies. Not every enemy that you encounter will have an element tied to them. You'll usually have to be the one to inflict that element onto enemies to then receive, let's say, a vaporize or a melt or a freeze or electro charge and so on and so forth. Here in Honkai Star Rail is very different because enemies that you encounter have their own respective elements attached to them. And more importantly, they have multiple elements attached to them. So the element of strategy becomes more in depth and more profound in Honkai Star Rail because now you can't necessarily create a quote unquote meta team. Now, one could argue, well, you probably could to a certain extent. And the reason why is because it becomes increasingly more difficult to come up with a quote unquote meta team for the Forgotten Hall because every character you encounter is going to have their own respective element attached to them. And therefore you have to come up with two teams once you get to higher levels, of course, just like Genshin, where the floors are going to have enemies who, of course, will be weak to, let's say, physical and ice and quantum. But then the node 2, you have another team that has to, have fire and lightning and also quantum. So these are things that you have to kind of be mindful of when building teams. So it isn't just, okay, well, I'm going to pick Zhongli and I'm going to pick Albedo, Xiao, and Jean. Boom. Typical, straightforward, high damage team. I'll just go through the entire abyss with this team. This in Honkai Star Rail is very different, where you're going to have to start mixing and matching your different characters. And of course, in this version, the closed beta, almost every character is unlocked to you. So it's obviously it's much easier in this regard because with the beta, they obviously want you to test the characters out, see how they fare in battle. But come full version of this game, I imagine that things are going to be a little bit more challenging as you're not going to have as much character diversity in the, let's say, first patch or second patch of the game. So I want to give you some like gameplay just to kind of show you an example of what I'm talking about. So in this particular character node or this particular level, let's go with floor 10. So floor 10 recommended types is physical. It says physical, but as you can see on screen, you have not only physical, but you've got wind, you've got imaginary, lightning, fire, cryo, and quantum. So while the recommended type is physical, you still have to build a team that consists of other elements to therefore take out other enemies. So for the sake of the video, I'll be playing the actual mode in fast forward. And this is another good perk about Honkai Star Rail is you can actually fast forward your gameplay. And so I'll give you an example. So right here, I need to choose characters that are strong at wind, strong imaginary, strong physical, or at least one physical and let's say a fire or cryo. So for me, my favorite team right now consists of Gepard, Luocha, who is the healer, Blade, who is my favorite character right now, who's my main, and then, okay, physical character, let's go with MC. Main character is honestly very, very good in this game. I can't say the same for Genshin, but in Honkai Star Rail, the main character is actually quite strong, and so we'll jump into it. So we enter the memory right here, and I'll autoplay. So this right here, this is the screen you'll see. You'll jump straight into it. You have two enemies here. They're obviously on the first floor, and then it'll show you their weakness just below, just as I've mentioned before in the previous video for tutorials. And so now I'm going to swap to my physical character because I want to obviously get the, or actually I can go to Blade actually. We'll go to Blade, and then we'll go and we'll use our technique to get the weakness pop. And like I said, I'll fast forward here. And I'll try and do commentary as I go. So right there, I've already wiped out two enemies because my team is already pretty strong. We get a heal. So again, as you can see, things are moving fast. Battle over already. In the blink of an eye, that was done. And so now we're on to the second enemy. So the second enemy now has physical, quantum, fire, and cryo, or ice. So we'll do Gepard here. Gepard is a great character because he boosts the defense of your team, and then let's go for quick punch. I'll play this through as well. We'll just fast forward this.
ルールは破るためにある。
この程度か。
I got an achievement too, actually. That's cool. And there you go. Just like that. Boom. Perfect clear. And just like that, you get a 3-star and you can move on to the next challenge. So that's pretty much how you would play the Forgotten Hall. Again, just like the Abyss, where you have to come up with your own team. But again, in the case of Forgotten Hall, it is a little bit more refined, a little bit more thought needs to go into your team building, because again, every character has their own distinctive characteristics and abilities that can help the team. And so you have to really be considerate with how much effort you put into each team and who you want to build, because as you progress into the floors, you'll then see that challenges of course become more and more demanding, as that, you know, as you can see here by floor 11, now you have 2 teams versus the 1 team. So again, the dichotomy between Honkai and Genshin is that Honkai is more of a strategical approach. You really need to be thinking on a more tactical level, whereas Genshin, it's really more of an action-oriented, fast-paced game. So it really all depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a more slow-paced, more methodical, tactical approach to playing the game, then Honkai Star Rail's Forgotten Hall would be very rewarding for you, especially when you get to the Memory of Chaos, where things are a little bit more challenging. And then, of course, if you want a more action-oriented sequence, then of course Genshin is your best friend there. So hopefully this has given you somewhat of a gist of what the Forgotten Hall has to offer in terms of its reward system, in terms of the amount of depth it provides when it comes to team building. And of course, I've given you a pretty rough or pretty fair comparison between Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. So hopefully that can give you a good justified reasoning as to whether or not you'll want to pick up this game. I hope you do. It's an awesome game. Again, I love strategy games, and if you love those types of games turn-based wise, then Honkai Star Rail is right up your alley. So to wrap things up, what I'll do is I'll just play through a Memory of Chaos, just to kind of give you a glimpse of what it's like on a higher difficulty level, and then we can go from there. So I've already cleared floor 8, and I pretty much cleared the game at this point. I just didn't get my stars here yet, but again, I've already cleared it. Usually if you don't clear it, it's grayed out, but if you cleared it, it's all in orange. So we'll go from here. Floor 8, I'll pick a team for you guys and you can enjoy it for the rest of the video. So I'll try and do commentary, of course, over the video as things progress, but for now, again, we'll just talk about a strategy before we go into the game. So recommended types, you have wind and quantum. So you go here, you look at your enemy, you're thinking, okay, I need to bring at least 1 wind character because there's 2 enemies that are weak to wind. And then of course, quantum, every enemy is quantum weakness. So therefore I'll think, okay, I'll do Silver Wolf because she's a great debuffer for the team. And then I'll use Blade because he's obviously a great character, consistent. And then we have Lightning. So we can bring in Jing Huan. And then let's say we need a healer. We may need a healer here. So we could always bring in Natasha. And then the second field, we have physical, wind again, and imaginary. So in this case, I might opt out of a heal. I'll go for Gepard because he's a shielder. I'll go for additional heals for Luocha. And then the physical, we can do Xu Shang because she's an amazing character, even for level 4. And then what else do we have? We have Lightning, Cryo. Okay, so we need a wind character. So let's go with Dan Heng. Okay, we'll just fast forward this one too. Hopefully we don't get jammed, but we'll see. All right.
100% 弱点にいきゃすぐ餌にかかる
So everyone's entangled here, which means they can't move. So I'll go fast
ガ
forward.
ツンとくるやつでほんの気持ちよ
What's great about this autoplay feature too is that you can literally do other activities while you're watching this unfold.
2倍速って
And then let's say your team is getting roasted, you could always hop back in. It's always a nice little thing. Jingwan here is really good just for AoE damage. Another great thing about Jingwan too is that his lightning lord ability essentially gives your team 5 characters. Ooh, that was a nice windbreak there. So right there, what Silverwolf does is she debuffs the enemy, but she also implants an additional weakness to the enemy. So before, the enemy was only weak to quantum and physical, I believe wind, but then she added an additional weakness, which is lightning, I believe. Almost done here. Oh, look at this, 3 battles. This is what you have to do in Forgotten Hall for the Memory of Chaos floor. So much longer battles, but again, more methodical, more rewarding, I feel, if you really enjoy this type of experience. That was a good heal there. That was a good heal. Alright, so right there, she implanted lightning now, so now she's weak to lightning, which is good for us. Unfortunately, Jing looks like he's on his last leg here. We're almost there. Good heal there by the auto. So we got the break, which is fantastic. Now it's just a matter of chipping him out. Nice. Perfect. So there you go. That just gives you a gist of what to expect at the higher levels. Obviously, the battles are a lot longer. So the duration of time you have to invest is, of course, a little bit longer than usual. But again, it's the rewarding factor of seeing your team shine that really does bring the game to this end result, that is the strategy element. So hopefully this video has given you a good breakdown and analysis as to what the Forgotten Hall is compared to the Spiral Abyss of Genshin Impact, and I hope that the gameplay you've seen today has given you a little bit more reassurance as to what to expect as well. So until next time, thank you again for watching. If you enjoyed the video and you made it this far, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I also have my Patreon, so if you love to, for only as low as $1, you can become a Patreon yourself and support the channel for more video content. Thank you so much. See you next time, guys. Have a good one. Peace.